Right guys, welcome to the podcast. So first and foremost, we're going to start with Mrs. Gemma Bosanko. As you will all know, if you followed my journey, this was a big part of the journey and a big part of us transferring online. So we're going to get started by speaking to Gemma and getting to know everything behind her story, how she joined JD training and what has happened since. So Gemma, welcome to the podcast. Sounds very official, that. So just to get started on the podcast, guys, there's no script. We're just going to go raw. We're going to talk about everything, and it's going to be unedited as well. So there's going to be no script, and there's going to be lots of stories about how we started. So welcome to the podcast, and yeah, tell us a little bit about how you joined JD training.
I don't know how I feel about this being unedited, but I came back to JD, a couple of years ago in like June, July. I had got to the point I've been with a different slimming club, shall we say, for a long time, about 10 years. And we'd gone through COVID and I'd lost a lot of weight over the last 10 years. I think around about 5 stone. And then we went through COVID and I just slowly started to gain weight constantly and I just couldn't get my head around it. And then as we were coming out of COVID, I'd kind of gone back to a different diet club and it just wasn't working for me anymore. And I remember sitting in my garden, I went on Facebook and JD training was there. It was posted by Andrea, one of your other members, and she'd lost a significant amount of weight on this JD training. So I messaged you on Facebook and being the typical woman that I am, I wanted to know, what is this? How can I do it? I want it right now. And you came back and you said, yeah, come through and see me next Wednesday in my studio in Dalton. And I was like, is he joking? I want it now. So I had to wait like a week. I thought, do you know what? This woman has had amazing results and I'm at a point where I'm so uncomfortable with the way I look and I'm just not getting any results anymore and I can't get my head around it. I thought I'm gonna have to come through to the studio and meet you. So I came through one day and I met you at the studio and I think we had about an hour's, I'm not sure whether you call it a conversation or a conflict.
Probably a bit of both.
A bit of both. About my history with losing weight, where I'd been, etc., and what my journey was. I remember we argued over the fact that I told you I ate healthy. I didn't understand why I was gaining weight. I said I did everything right, and we argued black and blue that I definitely didn't. And then I think we spoke for about an hour and a half. Little did I know you were interviewing me at that time to work out whether I would be the right client. And then I think we got to the point where you said to me, "Oh, right, well, just tell me what you eat." And I was like, I eat healthy food, speed food, salad, watermelon. I eat like half a watermelon a day, to which I think you nearly fell on the floor. And you were like, why do you eat this? And I said, because it's a snack. Like, I just snack on it. It's free food, speed food. And then I think you worked out I probably had a day's calories every day in watermelon. And I think that's when the penny dropped. So you obviously told me about calorie counting. I'd never done it before. Obviously, everything I've ever done before has been just healthy eating. Eating things like free food, speed foods, things like that. So very quickly you were telling me about MyFitnessPal, calorie counting. You told me that you had all sorts of documents and programs which I absolutely wasn't interested in. I thought, I haven't got time for this, just tell me what to do. So I went home that night, downloaded MyFitnessPal, was like, God damn, I'm gonna have to get my head around this. And I think very quickly the penny dropped that when I started to track my calories, despite the fact I was healthy eating, I was probably consuming around 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day, some days. And I suddenly started to realise where I was going wrong. And I think the history of my weight loss journey, shall we say, going through COVID, I think was masked by the fact that I'd stopped running, exercising. And I think I've obviously been consuming all these calories over the years, but it was hidden by the amount of exercise I always did. So going into COVID, I obviously started to gain weight. So yeah, you maybe did teach me a little bit about calorie counting, but obviously that's how I came around JD. And then very, very quickly, as soon as I started tracking my calories, channeling my workouts to kind of be more conditioning, etc., the workouts that you taught me, I started to lose weight very, very quickly, became addicted.
Yeah, so I think going back to that, this is a podcast, by the way, guys. This isn't Gemma just talking at me. But I think you'll find that's exactly how we met. it was exactly like that has just happened there. And I think the good thing about it is how you can be so honest about it. So just a little bit of background on that. So I was working in a studio based in Kirby and Furness, getting lots of really good results, built a really good community. But up until that point, like, as you well know, I didn't speak on camera, never spoke on Instagram. It was literally just results, wasn't it?
You told me you didn't have time for online, you didn't believe in Instagram, you didn't believe in anything like that, because I obviously thought you were an online program, hoped you were an online program, because I live like an hour away or so. So the fact you made me drive through to the studio to meet you was like, but you did tell me like, there's no room in this world for online training at that time.
Yeah, I think there's actually, you'll have to bleep this out, but I think there's actually, like I've said on previous podcasts, there's actually a picture of me with my arm around a client saying, and it's still on Instagram now if people want to find it, fuck online training. Because that is essentially what I thought about it. I didn't think you could get results. I didn't think you could build a community. I didn't think you could build a relationship with someone if you wasn't seeing them in person. And that was my naivety. But just going back to, like, obviously you coming through to the studio, prior to that, and I think these are sometimes the preconceived ideas now with what's happened with JD training, is people would generally believe that, like, I knew you before. Obviously you had a big following on Instagram. You'd been part of like a slimming club. And that's just wasn't true. I had no idea who you was. What I did know is that first Facebook message was very much like this is what I want, this is what I need, and this is when I want it. And I was like,
changed.
yeah, no, you haven't, to be fair. But I've just got a little bit better at managing your expectations, let's say. So yeah, and it was literally just like, and I was like I had no idea. And at that point it was on Facebook as well. And I think that's key to note, is like, it was on Facebook, it wasn't on Instagram. So at that point I still had no idea like that you had quite a big following, who you were, where you were from. And that is one thing we used to do. And I think going back to that conversation, one of the conversations I used to have is I've always worked with people on a set program over like 16 weeks, as you well know. Prior to online, it was exactly the same. It was like, I don't do £25 an hour, £45 an hour. You sign up, it's 16 weeks, it's a program, it's habit forming, and we get a result at the end. And I think when we had that discussion, that's what I used to do with all my clients, is like, right, if you're interested, come up, let's have a chat. Let's find out how you're willing to perform. Are you willing to do what we ask? Are you willing to do this? And in the meantime, what was feeding back to me as well was obviously the community that I'd built. Everybody knew you. Everyone was pretty much from the same area as you as well. And then that is when they started trickling in like, oh, I've heard Gemma's messaged you, blah, blah, like, yeah. It's like, oh, well, she's got this many followers. And I was just like, well, let's meet her in person. She sounds like she's going to be a pain.
I wasn't a pain.
For the first hour and a half, so we obviously had a discussion. I genuinely believed that I was interviewing you.
I believed I was interviewing you.
Yeah, and I think we both came away with that kind of vibe. But
I thought we were going to have a 10-minute conversation, and like 2 hours later we were still arguing.
Yeah, and that's very, very true. But the reason, the point when I decided, like, I think there's something in this, is literally, I told you about calories. I told you that's where you was going wrong. I told you what you needed to do. And literally that night on WhatsApp, you got my number. On that night on WhatsApp, you sent me a screenshot of the first thing you'd ever tracked. And I was like, wow, like, she's gone away, implemented. Maybe there's something in that. So obviously in between then, we obviously worked together for 16 weeks, supporting you in the studio, and then while you were jet setting away on holiday, which is, or work as you call it. So yeah, so obviously supported you online and in person. And then during that time, I think one of the things that became apparent to me is that you had lots and lots of information, lots of experience about online. I was running at that point maybe taking 10 to 20 people on maybe a month online. It was really just like a back end system where people joined and I supported them if I couldn't support them in person. And I think it then became a relationship where every single session was about, right, what can I teach you, but also what can I extract from it? And then talk us through that first 16 weeks. Like, what was your thought? Obviously, you said that you started to get results really quickly. I think the thing for me, I was really aware of during them 16 weeks is I didn't want to be one of these people that's like a bit of a Klingon. I'd never, as you well know, I never posted on social media about your results or you. I just sent any pictures I took, like I did with all clients, I'd send them to the client if they wanted to post about the journey. But I was very aware that you had a following, and I was very aware that I didn't once I realised how much value I was getting from the conversations as well. I think the thing to add here as well, guys, is Gemma paid for her transformation. I would love to look back.
Oh my God, did I? You cost me a fortune. I once tracked it, how many thousands of pounds I paid.
I would love to go back and say like it was a absolute marketing genius.
It wasn't £300 a month at 16 weeks at that point. It was per session. You cost me a fortune.
So I think it was, and that's the thing to add, because I think a lot of the time when people like have seen like the big blow up that came with it, is people like, oh, that's marketing genius. And I'm like, trust me, it wasn't. But also on that, I became very aware quite quickly is I was getting a lot of value from it. We was obviously building a friendship. I've obviously met Andrew, met your family, and I didn't want to be known as one of these people that was like, oh, just get that person to post this or get that person to post that. So I was very standoffish, and I think you will admit that. Like I was very standoffish. It was just about business. It was like, right, what's your way in? What's this? What's that? How did you find that first 16 weeks?
It was a massive life change, because obviously I've done the same diet club, shall we say, for 10 years. So just to kind of wind back, there's two different things to that. Is immediately I started to see results, and I started to learn and be more educated around healthy lifestyle, fitness, lots of things. And like you said, I think we coached each other. But I think one of the things over the first 16 weeks is I kind of immediately started to step back away from the diet culture, and I think anyone that's been losing weight for a long time and has kind of been in any kind of slimming club, it's safe to say you're kind of just like addicted to thinking about food, thinking about your every meal, all that kind of thing. And very quickly I started to like step back from that, and it was actually a really nice feeling. It was more about feeling in control and actually about mindset, which really fed into other areas of my life as well. And like you said, during that 16 weeks, I had a lot of travel. I think at the time I was going to Dubai maybe. Yeah. So I think you'd said to me, look, we do a 16-week program. And I was like, no, I need 8 weeks. And you were like, no, it's 16. I was like, all right, well, I'm going away in 8 weeks and I want to be here. But I think very quickly it allowed me to be driven, not only because I stopped thinking about losing weight, stepping on the scales. And don't get me wrong, like I definitely cried when the scales didn't go down. But I remember like warming up and down in the studio with you, like pacing, like I've not lost weight this week, and you're like, for God's sake. But like I genuinely stepped away from like obsessing about, getting weighed every Monday and wearing the same clothes and stepping onto the scales and all that kind of thing. And actually being able to drive all of my energy, not just into my fitness, but back into my career. Whereas I think I've always been like on a Monday obsessed with, did I lose weight this week? Like what's my next meal, that type of thing. So the first 16 weeks was good in lots of ways. I learned a lot about education, about healthy lifestyle, and also it allowed me to just take control elsewhere. Obviously during that 16 weeks, I was traveling quite a lot. And I think, it gave me the confidence as well to step into a gym. I've always trained in the gym, but I've always kind of gone into the gym and just done my own thing and not really know what I'm doing. Running, yeah, you did actually bash me a lot for running. I did a lot of marathon running, which is how I hid my calories clearly. But like, I think I grew in confidence in the gym. I could go into the gym at work, I could do my workout, I could walk in. There's this meme, isn't there, where like this girl like walks into the gym and just like move out the way in the weight section. That was genuinely me. I was like, move, I know what I'm doing. So yeah, I think despite the fact that I learned a lot, it was good to kind of conversate with you. It was good to see you change and grow and change your mindset. Like I love some of these things where you're like, I'm never doing that. And then I have to like drip feed information like, have you considered this?
Yeah.
And also just seeing like your mindset change over the 16 weeks as we were working together. And I think obviously this is kind of where the business grew and came from. But
100%.
I think you're right. Like during that first 16 weeks, you were very standoffish with me. And I think you're the first to admit you don't trust people very easily. And I think there was that definite, I think you were like, why are you working with me? Type of thing. And I was always like, because I'm here to lose weight. And then we, like you say, we grew a friendship, and your mindset started to grow on the business and online training. So I think, yeah, the first 16 weeks was interesting. I also didn't post a lot during that 16 weeks. And I think that was mainly because the vast majority of my following, so I've been on doing Instagram for about 10 years, I think. And the vast majority of that following has been through weight loss, healthy lifestyle, shall we say, slimming clubs. And a lot of the people that follow me, the vast majority have been on that journey with me. And I guess I thought at that time that I kind of joined you, I'd seen a lot of people talking about calorie counting, and there seemed to be a switch, I'm sure you'll agree,
yeah,
where a couple of years ago, everybody kind of, I'm going to call it realisation.
It was COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think a lot of people, and genuinely, I think I was disappointed in the slimming club I'd been in, because I had that moment of realisation of, you know, I've put my heart and soul into this for years. I bowed down to it. And don't get me wrong, I think there's a place for every slimming club or
100%.
every, you know, diet, whatever you want to call it. There's a place for every single one of them, for every single person within a certain stage of their life. So I'm not about to bash it. It was the right thing for me at the time. But during COVID, or when I had that conversation with you, there was a definite realisation of, this is why it doesn't work for a long time. This is why I've been on this journey for nearly 10 years, because I've never educated myself in healthy lifestyle, food, fitness. I've just consistently done what I was told, you know, within a slimming club. And I think at the time that I joined you, there'd been a bit of a switch online where a lot of other people had kind of realised that as well. Whether there was a lot more education coming out in the media, I'm not sure.
I think it was COVID, wasn't it? So COVID was like that circuit breaker. So when obviously COVID stopped, I'm guessing, I don't know much about it, but I'm guessing COVID stopped them in-person meetings. So they might have been doing them virtually, but I think everyone had kind of had an opportunity where they stepped back from one culture and opened their eyes to then what was going on Instagram. And then on Instagram and other platforms, you had a lot of PTs then realising, hang on, we're going to go online here. So then they started putting out content. I still don't think if it hadn't been for COVID, so many people would have moved towards calorie tracking.
I think if it hadn't been for COVID, I would still be where I was, because I only contacted you that day because I remember I'd had afternoon tea in the garden. It was Queen's Jubilee, I think. And I'd all my family around, and we'd had family photographs, and I had to cut myself out of every one of them. I looked at the photos and I realised you really put some weight on, and I couldn't stand to look at it. And I remember sitting down in my garden, came on Facebook, and there you were with Andrea, and thinking, I'm going to message this guy and just like, I just need something. But I think that the thing with the posting is there's two things. Is coming out of that long period of always doing the same thing, I was aware I didn't want to suddenly start being one of these people that, you know, I've done doing something new, I've gone to calorie counting, start to bash the other side. And also because out of respect for the people that have been on my journey, I wanted to make sure it worked. So I didn't want to suddenly be like, you know, now I'm doing this, I've been doing that, but now I'm doing this. So I kind of wanted to see, like, how does it work? Is it going to work for me? And I also just didn't want to talk about it online until I could almost credibly talk about it, I guess. Because I'm aware that lots of people, you know, potentially are influenced by, you know, people on social media. So I felt like I had a duty to make sure that it is credible, I guess is the right word. So I didn't really post about it for probably about 8 to 10 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think I even shared that I was with you.
I think you posted on your stories a couple of times, but yeah, it wasn't. And I think that was the beauty of it, though. The beauty of it is a lot of people, and I would probably do the same. And I cannot say if someone walked into my studio now with a big following that I wouldn't think about it differently, because I definitely would. But I think at the time I was so naive to social media, and also my business was going really well. I had a really good in-person business. It was by far growing at a rate which I was super excited about. It was a great lifestyle, and I'm not online. I love online, but it has been a shock to the system 24 hours a day for the last 2 years. But it was a great lifestyle for me as well, and we were building a community, and the whole local area was starting to change, and we're starting to get a great name. But I think if someone walked in now, I would definitely judge it differently because I've seen it. But prior to that, I was so naive to it, as you can probably vouch for that. I didn't have a clue. Like I didn't have a clue. Like someone would be like, oh, well, they've got this many followers, and it meant absolutely nothing to me. So, and I think that naivety at the time was something that I didn't think about issue posting about. I didn't think about, all I did is just same as I do with every client is you need to weigh in here, you need to do your progress pictures here, and this is what we're doing. It's 16 weeks, this is what we commit to, and we commit to a result. You tell me what that result is, and we reverse engineer that. So, let's get to the dropping the photo story, because I think this is quite a funny story. So when it comes to dropping the photo, which obviously caused a big stir online, I think it's fair to say we had a bit of a mix-up, didn't we?
We definitely had a
So I was like, I messaged you, because by this point, obviously 16 weeks has gone past, it's like 4 months. I've got to know you a little bit better. We were in more or less daily comms.
And I think because I hadn't shared it a lot about my journey, because of that kind of wanting to protect that it was the right thing, not a lot of people would have expected that
No.
photograph because it kind of came from nowhere.
Yeah, definitely for your followers. So I think the thing to think about was like, I obviously messaged you quite a forceful message, didn't I? Saying like, get your photos up. But I think...
But on the app.
Yeah, I obviously meant on the app. You misread it and was like, all right, yeah, I'll post it. And then you posted to social media, and then I was like...
You were in a fit camp.
Yeah, I was in fit camp, and it was like... Again, you're going to have to beat this bit out, but I was like, fuck. I didn't mean like post the pictures. I meant post them on the app so I can see them.
I wasn't even ready. I was thinking, I don't think I want to put my pictures on
Yeah,
Instagram in my underwear. But you were like, get your pictures up.
Yeah, it was just a complete misunderstanding of like, because we were in daily comms by that point, I was a lot more relaxed with you by that point. I was like, look, just get your photos up. We need to see them. We need to look at the results. Then you've posted them on social media, and I was like, I did not mean that. And then it just started. And I think that was when I realised, my battery went.
I was going to say, I think when I finally spoke to you, you were like, my battery keeps dying.
Yeah, I was like, fuck. Like, I was literally just gobsmacked. Because even once you'd posted the photos, I was like, because that's what I used to rely on. I used to think, well, I'll do one transformation, I'll post the photos, I'll get 2 clients. I'll post the photos, I'll get... And that's exactly how I grew my business. I'd never spoke online. People recognised the actual logo, but didn't know me as a person, me as a brand, didn't know me as an individual. I never even posted my face, really. So never mind talking to camera. So again, once we posted that photo, even when it went up, I was like, they're sick. Like, I might get 10 clients locally for this. And then it just went. And I think that was the beauty of, like you say, getting to know you over time, rather than it being like a planned release of like, oh, we'll do it at this time, and then we'll run an intake at this time, and then we'll run this at this time and build a business around it. It was just so authentic that it just dropped, and it was like, right, what do I do now? And I think the thing to add there is everyone's always like, oh, it was a great market move. It wasn't a great market move.
You had nothing set up.
It was an absolute mess, to be honest, because I didn't have a website. I didn't really have I had a program.
Didn't really have a payment system either.
Didn't have a payment system. I didn't have a website. I didn't have a payment system.
Can I just add that? I told you so.
Yeah, I didn't have a program. So all I had was the app, I had the program, I had the check-in. So with regards to coaching, everything was built, but I had no way of getting people onto there. And then literally my messages started, and even at that point, I probably wasn't ready for the amount of conversations I was going to have, and also the amount of impact it was going to have. Like, it was literally like from that point on, I was an online coach, and I was sending out, I think, there'll be photos on the wall. There's people that have been with us since that time where they were like, I literally just bought over a PayPal link. Like, you never even sent me a website. And I think everyone thought I was putting it into my personal bank account or something. They were like, oh, just skip the website, come to me. And it was like, I don't have a website. And I think that was at the point where we realised, like, for me, I was like, wow.
The business then was really established overnight.
Yeah, and it looked like it on Instagram. So yeah, and
in a hotel room.
Yeah, so for me it was a massive learning curve. So yeah, we go back to the hotel room situation. So what happened with the hotel room situation, for people that don't know, is I've got, how many did I have at the time?
3.
I've got 4 young kids under the age of 6 right now. I thought it was Amira born.
Yeah, you had 3. She was a baby.
That's bad, isn't it? I don't know, and you do. So I had 3 young kids under the age of 4 probably at the time, and I had an influx of people. I'd signed them up, and I remember saying to you, like, and you were just like, just go with it. Like, I'll help you. Just push through. And I remember you being like, I'll help you, and then are you going somewhere? I think it was Dubai, and I was like, what am I meant to do now? Like, and I remember where, like, again, I don't want to go on about it too much, but where I'm from, like, I'm from a council estate in Bradford, so I was like, I can't do this. Like, how am I going to do it? Like, they're not even on the app. How am I going to put them on the app? How am I going to get them to start on the right day? I was already running intake, so I knew how to do it, but I just remember being like, I'm going to have to check in a hotel. And I went and checked in a hotel locally. Probably going to go for food there tonight, actually. And just checked in, got my notebook out. I didn't even have a laptop, to be honest. I
remember the day you went to buy a laptop.
I had an iPad. So I had an iPad and I had my phone. And I just remember going through PayPal like a school register, being like, Joanne Smith, writing it in my notebook, and then going through everybody, making a note, and then one by one manually putting it onto the app. I remember being in comms with you. I remember Sam, my partner, bringing me some food down, and I just remember everyone goes, it must have felt amazing. I was like, it didn't. It didn't. Like, I'd built a brand. Suddenly, like, I was getting messages all the time. When do we start? What does it look like? And I'm like, you'll see.
But you implemented anything I said to you at that point. You just implemented it straight away.
Yeah, and that's what you've got to do, innit?
Yeah.
Like that's what you've got to do. And I kind of seen that, and I saw like it was that the trust was there because of that reverse journey.
Yeah.
So like going back to like me saying you need to track calories, and then right away like that night on WhatsApp you sending me a picture of like, I wish I had my phone. You sending me a picture of like that first thing you'd ever tracked, and I was like, wow, she's implementing quick here. And obviously I do that, and then. Yeah, but everyone always says like it must have felt amazing, like, and I was like, it didn't, because by that point we'd become friends. I'd met Andrew, I knew quite a lot of people in and around you, and I was like, I didn't want to mess it up. I remember speaking to Graphit recently on a podcast, and they were like, how did it feel? I was like, pressure. Like, it didn't feel nice at all. And I just remember from that point saying to you, like, I'm not doing that again. Next time we do an intake, I need a website, I need an automation, I need this. And then that started a journey with me where I knew nothing about websites.
I remember you buying your laptop and you came out of Currys and you were like, I don't even know how to use it.
I didn't. I still don't, to be fair. No, I didn't. Well, because everything was built. People laugh, but like, as people know, like people as they get to know me, I'm authentic, I don't tell lies. I'd built a program so that I could manage people in person. I had, say, maybe 40, 50 people I was managing in person. I was really full. WhatsApp wasn't doing it anymore, and I needed to make sure they weighed in on time and they got a set syllabus of teachings, which is what I generally did. So I'd built that out, but I'd built it on an iPad. And most people are like, oh my God, like this is life-changing. I'm like, oh, I'm glad you think so, because I built it on an iPad, sat next to Roman watching Thomas the Tank Engine in bed most days, trying to get him to sleep. So, and that was kind of the backstory. And then from that point, obviously, we then developed into what it is now. So talk to me a little bit more then about, like you said, about the mindset thing and becoming friends. So obviously now we train together, and I think most of that is counselling, really, and it's a sounding board system.
Each other.
Yeah.
It's normally your morning rant, to be honest.
Yeah, so like, and I think that's something, somewhere along that journey, I think we both realised that we were probably quite similar. We were both under a lot of stress, and I think at that point it become like a bit more of a sounding board, didn't it? And a bit more of a mentor. I've said that before. Obviously, I've got a business mentor, but I've said that before. Like, people always say, like, how did your head not fall off? And I was like, one, I didn't do anything other than work, and I think that's one thing to point out. Over the last 2.5 years, I've not done anything other than work. I've not cooked a meal. I've not been shopping. But then two, I just surrounded myself with people like yourself, my business mentor, and other people that I kind of was performing on that level, just not in the field I was doing it in.
Yeah, mindset wise, I think my whole life changed. Like, it sounds like a cliche, but, and I say it to anyone, like,
Get on camera again.
JD training
JD training, life changing. That'll make a
no, genuinely, JD training changed my life. It in so many different ways.
And I think that's, at the beginning, I think that's what I struggled to recognise, because obviously, because my life had gone through, once we dropped the results, my life had gone through. And I think I've had this conversation with yourself, and people are like, you can't have said that to her. I was like, I did. People always like, especially still talks to you. But I'm
like, surprised I still talk to you.
Yeah, to be fair. But like, it was honest, wasn't it? Because like, I probably didn't recognise that at first. Like, obviously you saying, oh, it changed my life, but because my life had changed at such a quick pace, I probably didn't recognise that. So like, I think you said it on there, I was always like, why are you supporting me? Like, do you remember that conversation I went and I was like I probably, because I'd never been in and around, but I've always been quite a bit of a lone wolf, and then this blow up had kind of happened, and then I was like, why does she keep helping me? And it probably wasn't until probably recently, probably till the health stuff, that I realised that, yeah, we'd probably changed your life. And I think that's because, again, I was just trying to sponge when I was trying. Yeah. I was just getting as much information. I was like, what do you do with this? Like, I remember once you...
And I still paid you a fortune.
Yeah. I remember once you having a meltdown about some lighting for some filming, and I was like, have you got nothing better to worry about than some lighting? And then now we're like, is that lighting right, Tom?
You're right.
So like, at the time, I was just sponging so much information, but I probably didn't recognise that at the time, that your life had changed, or you was changing, or that you felt confident in a gym, because I was just that engrossed in getting the result. And I think that's the thing.
It changed my life in a few different ways, though. So obviously, it changed my life with regards to the way I look and feel, my weight and everything. It changed my life for the better around food, education, things like that. It changed my life because I stepped away from the diet culture. Like, I wouldn't have said while I was in it that I was obsessed with the diet culture, but I clearly was. And I think anybody that's in that is, because it's their every thought.
They don't know any I think the big thing on that, and that's why you try not to judge people. Lots of PTs find it really easy to go online, bash diet clubs, when actually they do some really good things.
Yeah,
I
definitely agree.
They build a community, they give you accountability, and they give you some kind of education.
It taught me a lot, and I'll never, I'll always be grateful for that. But I think from a life-changing perspective, the fact I now don't think about food like that, or I don't worry about, I don't worry about eating things and stuff like that. I just live like that. That's life-changing, especially when you've always been in and around being on a diet. But two of the biggest things where it changed my life are actually just not fitness related at all. And I think a lot of people that have been through JD training will probably resonate. One is it gave me a massive amount, this is going to sound bizarre, confidence, because I'm actually not that confident. But from a work perspective, it allowed me to be able to stand up in a room and just not think about how do I look, how do I feel. It allows me to walk into a room and speak to a full room of people and hold my head up. And I think also it changed my mindset. I become more driven because whether it's because I lost focus on always losing weight and, just generally feeling happier and healthier. But the biggest thing where it changed my life is it got me physically healthier and stronger. So obviously a year ago, this time next,
message didn't where are we?
So a year ago next week, so 1 whole year ago, I obviously went in for a surgery and spent the next 3 months fighting for my life.
Yeah.
Little did I know, I ended up in intensive care. It went wrong. I'm pretty sure we all thought I was going to die. I think everybody did. I genuinely don't think I would have got through. And I remember even the doctors and nurses saying at the time, it's a good job you're as healthy and strong as you are. Like, if you remember, when I came out, this is a whole other story, but coming out of intensive care, I couldn't walk. I was on a Zimmer frame, had to learn to walk again. When I came out of hospital, and these are the things that nobody knows, I've never really spoke about. You obviously know, you were there throughout the whole thing. I had aids put around my house, couldn't sit up, couldn't sit for myself, had what do you call it, occupational health come into my house and put handles and everything around my house, and was still on my Zimmer frame. So that's bizarre. Oh, I'm not ready to laugh yet. But genuinely, had I not been strong and in a very healthy way, I don't think I'd have got through that. And obviously if there was a few points where we were very touch and go, I genuinely owe my life to, I'm not going to say to you because you'll hold that against me.
Say it again.
No, but I owe my life to getting into the best shape of my life and also having a strong mindset. And I think there was just one day where I genuinely thought I was going to die.
Yeah. I remember it. So going back to what you just said, so we'll recap on all that, but going back to what you just said, I'm obviously majorly biased, but I genuinely think that getting in the best shape of your life is a gateway to changing your life in every other area. I think if someone's in the best shape of their life physically and mentally, they then go on to have a better relationship with themselves, which then goes on to have a better relationship with their partner, with everyone else in and around them, their friends and stuff like that. They build much better friendships because they're being the true self. And then, like you said, with regards the amount of people that come through the JD training program and then go on to get a promotion, because naturally you walk into a room different, you hold yourself different, and because you've done something that's completely transformed the way you look and feel, you're do you know what, I can do this in other areas. And then the second thing, going to the health stuff. Yeah, and I think this was quite, and I remember recently you spoke out about it on social media, didn't you? And I was and you were no, don't get behind it. I was no, let me get behind it, because it was quite hard, because people would see it for kind of what it was on social, but obviously then I knew what was happening. I was I'd been to the hospital, I'm probably one of the only people to ever see you without makeup on, which is brilliant. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Outside of my family.
And I remember, outside your family, and I remember it well. Do you know what I mean? I remember I was going to come to Newcastle with Andrew, and then obviously you came here to the local hospital, and I remember coming to visit you.
You would bring me
Subway.
You would bring me protein. I couldn't eat it, but you would turn up with protein every day.
I remember bringing protein bars and a Subway, and then I said to you the other day when I got that Subway, I got them little chicken pieces, and I hadn't had them since I used to be bringing them to you or another client that we had that we were supporting. So, and I think people don't recognise that side of it. And I say this all the time, and that's why I bang on about it all the time, changing the way you look, but also the way that you feel. Because it goes in hand, but it is just as big, if not, in my opinion, bigger, and I genuinely believe that is a gateway. So, but yeah, I probably, when all this was happening, I just didn't recognise it. And I think that was the big thing for me when I was obviously we probably got over it like a year ago now, but like I was always like, why are you helping me? I was always like, in the back of my mind, I was always like, why is she helping me? What does she want? Like, I just remember having that conversation with me. People were like, don't say that to it, dear.
You just come in and be like, I said to Sam last night,
yeah,
what do you want?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
and
nothing.
Because I was very, like, at the time, I was very aware of what was going on in my life, but I was probably, because I was so tied up in what was going on, I was unaware. Obviously, I was aware that you were changing physically, and I was aware that you was changing as a person, with me especially, but I wasn't seeing the other stuff, and I was unaware of that. Obviously, you were traveling a lot as well, so I wasn't present during them times as much, apart from online. So yeah, I probably wasn't aware, and I think that was a big part at that point where probably I stepped more into the relationship a bit more and gone like, okay, right, I'm going to run with it now. Hence why I then started doing like events and fashion and and then obviously kind of run with it then. But I think that's just like a little bit of an insight into like how it happened. Because I think genuinely people, when I meet them, when I go to like getting around other fitness coaches, they're like, you have played a blinder with that. And I'm like,
I remember you'd never even spoke on Instagram. And I remember going into January and you were like, right, I'm going to speak on Instagram.
It was December.
Day.
It was December, yeah. So I
and
remember.
Now you can't get you off.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. By the way, if you follow me on Instagram, I would 100% block me. There's no way I'd listen to that every day. But yeah, you're right. Like I remember you saying like you have to have a presence. It's more than just results. Funny enough, I'm going through that cycle again Anna, right now. Hence the podcast. But like,
and I saw you cooking rice on your Instagram the other day. You said I'll never be an Instagrammer cooking food.
Yeah. And I think you're definitely right, because I remember you saying that and I went, right, December, I'm going to speak on camera, whether it be on my story or on the grid, every single day until January, so that I'm well versed in it. And I think people, it's funny because when I speak to clients, and I'll be speaking to some today, they had no idea.
I had to write you a content calendar, do you remember?
Yeah, Christmas, I've got it. I had to show Philip not long ago. Yeah. And I think people didn't realise that, because they will, and they don't realise it now, like people come in and they're like, oh, can you pass this on to Joe's? If they're speaking to someone else, like I'd love to say I've got like, sorry to call Joe Wicks out, but I'd love to say I've got a team, do you know what I mean? But that's just not it. Partly my fault as well as a control freak, but that's just not it. And I think people didn't realise what was going on at the time. And I think obviously because my life was changing, and it was, and my mindset was changing, I probably hid it as well, didn't I? I didn't talk about money. I didn't talk about success. I didn't talk about how many clients I had. I remember I
don't think you knew how to handle it.
No, what I always say, so, and I'm quite open about this, is I will never discuss something if I can be triggered by it. So what I generally do is, if I know I can be triggered by something, I won't discuss it, because I know if someone was to say the wrong thing, it's going to trigger me. So yeah, you were right. I was figuring it out myself. And also as well, like I want to add as well, like I had no idea about running a business. Like I genuinely had no idea about running a business.
I used to ask you questions like about your numbers, about all sorts. You'd be like, I ain't got a clue.
I didn't at the time. Like all I knew is I had more money than I'd ever had, and I had more clients than I'd ever had, and I didn't have time to sit and think about it. And I think as partly as well, I was a little bit worried to sit and think about it, because it was like, now's not the time to clap yourself or pat yourself on the back. Like, and to be fair, it's still like that now. We just got to run with it. We've just got to run with it. We've just got to run with it. And then 2 years later, we're still running with it and blagging it along the way. But no, yeah, you're right. No, I didn't. Of course I didn't. And I think that's one of the things that was really authentic about, as you was growing, like obviously so was I, and I think that was absolutely massive, and has generally been a big part of like our friendship, and it like the way that both our lives have changed along the way has been like a massive part of it. And then if you look like now,
I remember the day that you came into my office and you called me out. I can't say it because I'd have to swear.
You
called me out. No, I don't. You called me out for having an office.
I remember coming to your house. I remember coming to your house, and like I just remember like you remember me telling you, like I was just weirded out by it, wasn't I? I was like, I don't go to women's houses. And then Andrew was there.
Was I teaching you something? I can't remember. I think I was teaching you about email systems or something.
Yeah, you were teaching. It was something I think it was the CRM, when I first got a CRM, and you was like, oh, I need to see it. And I'm like, oh well, and you're like, oh well, you're in Miller. I was like, we'll just meet in a Costa or something. And she's like, there's no Costa in Miller. I'm like, come to my house. And I was like, oh, this is overstepping like professional boundaries here, in my opinion. I was like, it was a bit weird. But yeah, I'm not. Yeah, it's just. I think the area you grow up in as well. Like you didn't have.
But I tried to explain, like, I have an office because it's where I work, and this is how you create your boundaries in life. I mean, you don't think you have boundaries in life, but I don't. Look at this.
I've done quite well on this podcast, by the way, to keep some form of boundaries and not. But yeah, and I think you're right. And then I remember walking in and like you having an office and that, and I was thinking, oh, I build my business with Thomas the Tank Engine, with my little boy next to me. But again, it had to happen. I genuinely believe, like, obviously we're going to go do some questions at the end with regards what some of the community have asked. And someone said on there, like, do you not get imposter syndrome? And I'm like, no. I have been through every single stage and felt every single emotion that I genuinely feel like I can kind of got that authenticity to stand here now and go, yeah, I'm a business owner. Because I've been through all of that. It's not like overnight I had a website, or I had to learn it all, and it was a journey, let's say. So I don't really get imposter syndrome. When people are like, do you not get imposter? It's like, no. I'm teaching fitness, which is all I've ever done. I've done that since I was 18. But also on the flip side of that is like, I genuinely have had them sleepless nights. That day in the hotel and everyone's like, oh my God, your life's changed. I'm like, yeah, but what if I get it wrong? Like, what if I miss someone? Like, I was doing a school register. Like, I was literally, I remember you being like, you can't do that. Like, most people wouldn't be able to do that. And you've got through this month. People don't have that mental capacity. You haven't even wrote down any, and I was like, no. And you're like, you can't do that again. You'll mess it up. And I was like, no, I won't. I'll be fine. Like 2 days later, I was like, I need to get a website done. And
Funny
like,
that everything I tell you, you're like, no. And then about a week later, you're like, so I'm doing this.
Yeah. And I think that tells you everything about like the way I am, I suppose. Like I don't take, and again, you've got to learn to trust someone. Like people will say things to you, and I'm always like, where I'm from, I was like, what do they want? What are they going to get out of it? And I think you have to get over that. And then that's why I find it so funny online now, or at the events when people are like, oh my God, I can't believe Gemma's here. I was like, I didn't employ her. Didn't employ her like, oh, we're going to do a transformation. Like, it wasn't like that. Do you know what I mean? So, and I don't think people realise that, like, obviously we speak pretty much every day. So I think people, when we get somewhere and I say something, I've been well behaved today, but when I say something normally, people are a bit like,
I remember the last event recently at Farmer Strong, and Rob was like, I can't remember how he worded it, but he was like, I can't believe the way he speaks to you. I can't think what he said. And he was like, I wonder why he speaks to you like that. And I was like, oh yeah, we are friends.
Yeah, like,
he was like, sometimes on a Sunday call, I'm like,
yeah, Rob Aspinall, yeah. Yeah, that's it. And I think
I take the most grief, I think, especially on a Sunday. Yeah.
I don't know. I give some out, like. I give some out. I
think
know.
people are surprised how you speak to me.
100%. I think people are surprised because, like, I remember when I meet people in fitness and I'm like, I bet she's a pain in the ass, isn't she? I'm like, I didn't employ her. Like, it wasn't.
Have we just established I'm not?
Yeah. You were pretty hard work when I first met you. That first conversation, I was like, have I just interviewed her or has she just interviewed me? And then, them first conversations were, you want hard work, but you were just setting your ways, weren't you? Like, I had to literally sit and show you, like, this is how much calories is in watermelon. Like, I don't want to slag anyone off that eats nuts with breakfast, but I remember your breakfast being like, oh, I have a handful of nuts, I had some this, and I have that, and I have some watermelon, I have some porridge. I was like, you're on about 1,500 calories. Like, and you were like, yeah, but it's healthy. And I'm like, it can be as healthy as it wants. Like, you're not in a deficit, you're not going to lose weight. So, no, you've been pretty easygoing, I think.
All right.
pretty easygoing, as far as influencers go, if that's what you call them.
Rude.
If that's what you call them. So, guys, hopefully that's given you an insight into how me and Gemma met, Gemma's story, the results, and the impact that hopefully JD Training's had on her life, and also the impact that Gemma's had on JD Training. So I know a lot of people have been kind of waiting for this backstory, so hopefully that gives you a good insight, and at some point we will do an unedited version as well, which is uncut and we say a lot more.